Hi, Zohar.
Hello.
We are Mother Milk, and today we're with Zohar. Zohar, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about who you are.
I'm Zohar, Zohar Morris. I am a nurse. I've been a nurse for 10 years, and I have worked in postnatal wards as well. Now I'm a community nurse, and I'm a mother of 3 children.
Yay, thank you for
And
being with us.
my pleasure.
So share a little bit about your infant feeding experience, both as a nurse and as a mom of three.
Well, my experience actually begins before I became a mother. I was working in the postnatal ward in a hospital in Israel, and one of the one of the main things that we had to make sure and teach about and deal with was breastfeeding. Well, I'm not a breastfeeding consultant, but we had to learn about it and go from room to room and make sure with each mother, A, if she wants to breastfeed, and B, is she managing or not. I always remember that the easiest mothers were the ones who said, no, I don't want to breastfeed. Great, check that out, enjoy, have fun. And the other ones would be, yes, I'm breastfeeding and everything's great. Good, check that one out, everything's fine. The ones that were more, that we had to work with were mainly the mothers who wanted to breastfeed but weren't managing.
Mhm.
Um, I think in Israel also there is not a very good preparation for
Mm.
breastfeeding before birth, and which is something that I realized only then, and I think is also one of the main problems. A lot of women become mothers thinking, oh, it'll be easy, I'll manage, and they don't realize that it's not as easy as they think, and it
Right.
takes work,
Yeah.
and nobody prepared for them.
Mm.
Nobody prepared them for it. So there we would work and get them to learn also the mechanical bit of it,
Mhm.
how to get the child to really connect to the mother, technically, physically, and also, of course, we'd help them emotionally,
Yeah.
um, really giving them also a lot of support. You can do this, you're able, and also reminding them that it's not always easy and it's okay. I mean, it's okay to feel frustrated. You can also get help, like outside of the hospital.
Mhm.
Um, and so there's a lot of help that is given in Israel on this subject, and
Mhm.
that was a big part of what we were doing in the hospital as well.
Amazing.
When I became a mother, I definitely wanted to try breastfeeding. That was something that I was going to do. In my mind, was going to breastfeed, only breastfeed, no formulas or anything. And the breastfeeding went very well for me. My daughter latched on very quickly. I started pumping very, very quickly as well. I used to pump and have my husband. So very early on, we used to take turns. So at night I would wake up one time and breastfeed, and then the second time my husband would wake up and give her the pump milk that I pumped, and then
Mhm.
I got to sleep for at least 4 to 6 hours, which was
Amazing.
wonderful.
Yeah.
Um, and then after a month, I got a fungal infection in my nipples. Not a very pleasant experience,
Yeah,
and
I would
that kind
imagine.
of stopped my huh.
I would imagine.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's a awful experience, and that stopped my breastfeeding in about uh, I think I continued for about 2 weeks plus minus, but that was it. And we moved to formula, and I
Mhm.
suddenly realized that formula is not the enemy. It's okay. I felt good. My daughter was happy, was growing, was
Yeah.
smart. I enjoyed watching other people feed my daughter. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
My back was less painful.
Oh, wow.
And and all was well, and everything was good.
Yeah.
And by the time I had my second son, with him the experience was completely different already, because now formula wasn't the enemy. So I
Right.
knew that whenever I feel like it, I can give formula if I want to, and
Right. It's a
the world
viable
wasn't going to
option
collapse.
and right.
Exactly. I knew that if I was going to go through a bad night, by now by the second child, my husband didn't wake up that much in the night because he had to take care of my daughter. So, and she was quite young still. So I would wake up more. And I always knew that I had that option and everything was okay. And I suddenly realized also that I had been very tense
Mm.
in with my daughter. Only now did I realize that the fact that I wanted to make sure to pump like 100 or 100 cc's of milk for the night had made me very tense. It had made me
Stressed. It like created a
stressed.
stressful
Exactly.
environment. Yeah. You had to
Exactly.
like reach a certain quota. And so that,
Exactly.
yeah,
So I had to reach a certain quota so that I could sleep at night,
right.
which is ridiculous. But only now did I realize that.
Yeah.
And then with my second son, I also started getting really into pumping, and I loved pumping. I love pumping milk. Um, and I
Amazing.
realized two things. First of all, I don't really enjoy, I have no problem breastfeeding. My kids, that's not the physical, technical bit is not a problem. I just don't
Mhm.
really enjoy it.
Mm,
But I do really enjoy pumping milk. I love seeing the
amazing.
milk come out. I love having these little uh, uh,
Competitions?
competitions with myself. Exactly. Like to see how, like, oh, today I managed this amount. Now I managed even more. You also really see the milk coming out. Like I love that. It's very rewarding, and the
Mm,
milk itself, that's just so beautiful. I mean, it's so fatty. I love the fat
mm.
in the milk, and I love tasting it.
Amazing,
It's really yummy.
amazing.
And then also the fact that I could do it in my own time.
Right,
I can pump whenever I want. I don't need the baby. I mean, the baby can be somewhere else. He can be sleeping. He can be doing whatever he wants, and I can pump whenever is good for me.
yeah,
And that was very liberating for me.
yeah,
Also, the fact that I can decide how much, so I can make a day of it and say, "Yalla, today I'm gonna pump every hour," and just make myself make me even more milk. And then another day I'll pump less, and that's fine too. So I love the play and the game in it, and I can just and it's my decision. I can decide whatever I want.
right. I
And
love
with
I
my
love
son,
Zohar that you take this kind of playful approach to breastfeeding and pumping in general. I think
yeah,
that's so that's so unique. I've not heard that voice yet of kind of like, not only playful in terms of it being kind of trial and error, which I know is
yeah,
something that you and I have discussed, but also playful in terms of kind of like what works for me and testing this and looking at that, and kind of also the approach of, it doesn't have to be so rigid, because I think so many times the message is that like, you start your feeding journey and like there's a fixed schedule and you have to make sure that you're, getting this much and what are the hours, and like it's very regimented. And your approach is very kind of like, no, find what feels good kind of thing,
right.
what works for you. And I think that's really unique and an important voice to bring. So thank you.
Well, my motto has always been a happy mother equals happy child, or happy parents equal happy child. And that's something that I try to implement on myself, and I
Yeah,
try to give to my patients as well.
amazing.
I always, always, always try to remind them, first of all, if we're not happy, it doesn't matter if we're breastfeeding or not. Our
Right,
children are not going to be happy.
right,
Theoretically, I could be happily breastfeeding, but very unhappy because I don't know what, because I'm depressed or because I'm having marriage problems. Who knows? I mean, you can be unhappy. And your kid is going to feel that. He's going to
right,
feel everything.
right,
Um, and even more so, I think, in breastfeeding, just because that's literally you and him. And so it's something that he will also experience as something that's just not good with him,
right,
or with
right.
her.
Wow. Amazing.
Um, So that's the motto that's incredibly important for me.
Yeah.
And my second child, actually, because I was much more relaxed about the whole thing, I breastfed him for a bit longer, for like 2.5 months. I had a bunch of stacked up milk in the freezer by then as well. And then I just stopped because I didn't, I don't like breastfeeding. So I just decided enough was enough, and that was it.
Amazing.
And you can ask me why am I breastfeeding if I don't like it? I don't mind it either. Like, it's not that I hate it.
Right.
Just, I
Right.
do it. I do it until I don't feel like doing it anymore.
Amazing. That's amazing. That's certainly a voice that
Yeah.
we don't usually hear. So I'm really happy that you're bringing that.
Well,
And
I try to do that in my life. But then with my third child, I had him. I gave birth, and literally the next week we already went into
lockdown.
Lockdown. So here from the beginning, I knew I was gonna probably pump. A, because I loved it, and B, because there was no way I was gonna be stuck in the house with 3 kids, and I didn't want to have to always be on his time schedule.
Right.
I wanted to be on my time schedule, so that way he would drink a bottle whenever he drank it, and then I could pump whenever I felt like it.
Amazing.
And then that was it. And after a month, I decided that was enough, and that was okay.
Amazing. And Zohar, is
Yeah.
there a particular moment that you remember that kind of has especially stayed with you in your feeding experiences?
Well, I think the main moment that I remember was that realization that I had been very stressed during my first breastfeeding experience with my daughter. Mainly because of that I knew that I had to pump, a certain amount so that I could sleep at night. And that was, and I suddenly, with my second child, I suddenly realized how stressed I'd been from that.
Right.
And now I know that I could have just, if I would have had a bad night, I could have given her formula.
Right.
But then I was still stuck on this whole only breast milk business. And so that's what got me stressed out. And these are things that I try to really pass on to my patients as well, to get them to see that there's another side, to get them to see that everything's okay. If they decide to do something, then that's their decision. It doesn't make them a bad mother. It makes them even, actually, I think, a great mother, because they're making the decision that's good for them. I think that's a really important. I mean, we always want mothers to be strong, to be confident, to be doing things that are healthy and good for them.
Yeah.
We tell them eat well, right? Do sports. I don't know what, but we don't think, wait, are you happy?
Right.
Are you enjoying this? And so I tell them my story all the time, just to make sure that they hear the side, that they know that everything's okay. If they don't want to breastfeed, that's fine.
Yeah.
And no problem with that.
Yeah, that's so I think that's such important kind of wisdom, especially, coming from a nurse, from, a medical staff professional, hearing that, that they do have a choice, and that their choice is fine.
Yeah.
As long as it's kind of their own and in tune with themselves, and that there is space for that. Because I think so often we forget that that actually, by kind of putting ourselves first, we are doing what's best for our kids, for our family.
I always take it to, when you go on a plane ride, and they always say, first put the oxygen mask on the parent so that they can help the child. It's that we need that oxygen mask, and that's perfectly fine, so that we can be there for our children.
Amazing.
The one thing that really is hard for me to hear is patients will tell me, oh, because I had a C-section in the end, I didn't get to do the skin to skin, or my baby got a bottle right in the beginning. And I say to them, stop, it's fine. Everything's okay. I give them my son, by the way, my second son, who breastfed the best, like, he was wonderful in a lot of things, but and he got a bottle right in the beginning because he had hypoglycemia right when, and I was in recovery. And so he got a bottle, and that was fine. I said, no problem. I mean, I told
Right.
the nurses we could get
And
a
that's
bottle.
so important to share, because like I know now from hearing all these stories, right, that the message that you get is kind of like, well, if you give a bottle, then that's it. You're closing the door on breastfeeding. And if you give a dummy, then forget it. And you're ruining your chances. And then you think in terms of like all or nothing, and that it's a zero-sum game, when
Exactly.
actually it's not. One bottle doesn't mean that you will never be able to breastfeed, or that you have, you know, absolutely ruined your chances for milk supply and things like that. So I think that that's a really, really important message for moms to hear,
That's
that
very true. And
that
also that first, they always say, oh, you should breastfeed them right after they're born. You know what? Not every mother wants to breastfeed right after they've just finished pushing a baby out of them and they're exhausted. And that's the last thing they want. I know mothers that just physically could not hold the baby and they didn't want to, and that's okay. It
right,
doesn't mean they love them less. It doesn't mean that the breastfeeding will go better or worse. It just means that that's what they needed at that moment. The kid is not going to care.
right.
All he wants is for hugs and kisses. I know mothers who unfortunately had to be in intensive care after births. They're never going to know. They're going to be fine. All they
Right.
need is somebody to hug them and feed them, and that's it. That's all they need. And
It's
so
amazing.
if
That's
that's what they're
really,
getting, then they'll be happy.
yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Thank you for that,
yeah,
Zoal.
those
Thank
are
you for
those
that
are
reminder.
amazing.
And wait, and one final question that's my favorite is that if you, and you may have kind of touched on this or said this, but just in case, if you could go back in time to Zoal, first time mom who doesn't yet have all the breadth of personal experience, is there something that you would want to tell yourself now that you do kind of, from this place of, now that you do have all this experience, now that you do have, all this knowledge and wisdom, both as a mom and as a nurse, like what would you want to tell first time moms as well?
Well, I would definitely tell myself not to be stressed out from
Mm,
breastfeeding. I would tell myself that formulas are not the enemy;
mm,
they're okay. And I would also remind myself that a happy mother means a happy child. Because I think even though I say it all the time to people, I still need somebody to tell me that as well.
yeah, we all do.
Mhm.
Yay.
Yeah,
Thank you, Zohar. I'm happy that you were here to voice these really, really important messages, and
my
and give
pleasure.
voice to things that not only we need to hear once, but many times. And also your very unique perspective. You really brought a fresh perspective to the breastfeeding and infant feeding journeys. So thank you so much for being with
Thank
us.
you for doing this. I think it's
Thank
really
you.
important too.
Bye, Zohar.
Bye.